about International Women's Day. When Di first approached me and said, would I be happy to talk at International Women's Day, and then told me the theme was around inspiring change, I felt a little bit of consternation in two ways. I've been in government for 23 years, and this is the first time I've ever been to an International Women's Day function. And so I'm not quite sure what that actually says, whether I think it, I felt disadvantaged in my career and therefore felt like I needed to make a point about it. But I was interested when I got the position at Mosman, and the headline in the newspaper was, first woman general manager of Mosman Council. And when you think about it, well, Viv was here for 26 years. And 26 years ago, women weren't doing these types of jobs, and the world has changed significantly. So for me, it wasn't unusual that I was the first woman general manager of Mosman Council. It was just, that was the way that it was, because Viv had been here for so long. But then, in saying that, when I first started the job, I met many different people. I went to a function, I went up and met a nice gentleman and shook his hand, and he looks at me and he says, so, he goes, what do you do? And I said, I'm the new general manager at Mosman Council. And he looks at me and he goes, that's a big job, isn't it? And I looked at him and I went, well, no, not really, I'm happy to do it, and I think I'll do it well. So, but isn't it interesting? So I suppose what I'm saying to you is I have not felt that discrimination in my career. I set myself a goal a long time ago. By the time I was in my early 40s, I wanted to be, the boss of an agency. That was what my goal was, and I achieved it. And so you could argue then that my career in government, or my career generally, hasn't been impacted by the fact that I'm a woman, because I set a particular goal and I achieved it by that time frame. But in saying that, maybe I've been lucky, I've got good people around me that see that skill and have supported and promoted me. But the challenge might be different for a woman who was potentially trying to look for a job in that gentleman's firm or in his career space. So I suppose it actually is a real issue. The other thing was around the theme of inspiring change. Not a big one on the inspiration factor. How many times have you gone to a function or heard something on television or heard someone speak and thought, oh my God, I'm going to do that. And then you wake up the next morning and the reality of life hits you in the face, doesn't it? You've got to go to work, you've got kids, you've got demanding husband or wife or whatever it is that you've got, and suddenly that inspiration is gone. And it reminds me of a project that I did many years ago in the Department of Sport, Premier's Department. And what it was the Premier's office rings up and says, oh Veronica, can you come upstairs, we want to talk to you about a project. Did you see the front line on the Sunday paper? And I'm thinking, no, you read the paper on Sunday. So I get a copy of the paper, and the paper says, Premier announces gold medal fitness program. I'm thinking, oh, that's interesting. So I go upstairs and I go, well, what is this gold medal fitness program? And they said, oh, well, we don't have one. It was a slow news day, Telegraph rang up and we gave them a story. So can you go away now and make up a program? And I go, okay, that sounds good. Yeah, do I have any money? They, oh, well, we'll think about money. And I thought, okay, so you get the agencies together and you say, sport and rec in the room and blah, 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 and go past all of that. And we come up with a great program. And what it showed was that kids didn't engage in sport later in life unless they learned those basic gross motor skills when they were young. So they had to learn how to catch. It's not an innate skill. You need to learn how to catch a ball, you need to learn how to jump, you need to learn how to skip, etc. So anyway, so the big thing about that was getting the school teachers to understand and get them out in the yard with the kids learning all of these things. And it started young, and we were going to do a longitudinal program over 10 years and follow these kids all the way through. And anyway, and right in the middle of it, a very famous Australian Olympian comes to the Premier's office and had heard about this gold medal fitness program and said, oh, I've got, this Olympian had ideas about it. And all the research had shown that just having a famous Olympian, albeit a one-to-one, go and talk to kids in schools was not going to lead to any long-term systemic change in their behaviour. And so anyway, and lo and behold, the program that this Olympian had suggested was costing around about $1 million. And guess what amount of money I'd been given to run this program? About $1 million. Most of it going on teacher salaries, to get them out of the school and backfill and things like that. So it was a very important program. And I remember going up to the Premier's office and I said, look, if you can just do one thing for me, can you just say no to this Olympian and let us do this program? Anyway, and to his credit, the person who was my contact in the office, he did say no. And we went on and we ran that gold medal fitness program, and it won a Premier's Department Service Award, has done great things for kids. Those kids now would have run that 10 years through that program, was after the Olympics. And so I suppose that's what brings me to the theme of my talk today. It's about saying, how do we be inspired, but how do we create a plan to make that happen? And I was very fortunate when I first started in local government at a conference to hear Gail Kelly speak, and she's the CEO of Westpac, obviously. And she talked about a model or 5 characteristics for being a leader and creating positive change within an organisation. And she stepped out this thing, and as I was thinking about it and thinking about this talk today, I thought, well, why can't we apply those things to our professional life, our sporting life, our personal life? There is, it's a model that you can use, and I thought I'd run you through those 5 steps with just some little anecdotal stories about how you might apply them. And the first one was about have a vision, and I mean, that's pretty normal, isn't it? Everyone understands have a vision, have a goal, create what you want to do. But many years ago, I actually did a course in goal setting and had to teach it. And I remember thinking, well, can't be that hard, you just write down your goal and then you work out what you want to do. And then when you realise that the actual goal you set yourself at the beginning of the process is critical. And I'll give you one sort of example of my story. My mother is a very well-known Australian Mills and Boon author. She's written over 90 books. And she started writing, and I laughed, anyway, she's very famous and she's good. And she writes a great Mills and Boon if you like it. Her name's Miranda. No, anyway, and she sort of sat down, she started writing novels when she was, I think I was 15 at the time, and she took 3 or 4 years before she got accepted by Mills and Boon. And when I sat back and I was doing this goal setting course, I sat one down and we went back and reflected over that time, and I said, what was the problem with, what goal had you set yourself when you started out on this process? And she said, I actually said she wanted to earn money working from home. We lived out western Sydney, actually right near where the new airport might go. We lived out there, and she couldn't go to work because she had young kids, and said blah blah blah. But when you look at that goal, that could have been anything, couldn't it? She could have taken in ironing, she could have walked dogs, she could have, done anything from home. And so, and she kept getting this feedback from the editor saying, your books lack emotional depth and warmth. They're not there, they're not coming across. And so she worked on it and worked on it. And in the end, we realised what her actual goal should have been was to write a great romance. And if that was her goal in the first place, then she would have written a great romance and she would have been earning money from home. So the issue is it's about saying exactly what the goal is. Another famous story I have about that, which I'll tell quickly because I've got more to talk about, is everyone knows who Kathy Freeman is, obviously. Kathy, I had the pleasure of running against and running with for many years, and she's a great girl. And after she failed dismally in her eyes in the 1992 Olympics, she set herself a goal of actually, I hope that's not my phone. Anyway, she set herself a goal of, and she wrote down a time that she thought would win the next Olympic Games. So that was coming up to Atlanta in 1996, and that time that she wrote down was 48.6. And to cut a very long story short, Kathy Freeman goes into the Atlanta Olympic final in the best shape of her life, and guess what? She runs 48.6. But did she win? No. Her goal wasn't to, she thought that time was going to be good enough. She didn't realise Marie Perec would run 48.2. But certainly by the time Kathy got to Sydney, she didn't care what time she ran, did she? Her only goal was to win an Olympic gold medal, and she achieved it. And for those that were lucky to be there that night, probably one of the best nights of my life, I think, for Australia as well. So it was wonderful. So moving on to the next part of the story is the next thing she talked about was surround yourself with the right people. And in organisational context, that's easy. Pick the right people, get the right staff, do the right things. And in your own personal life, though, or in things that you're dealing with, that's a little harder to think, And you sort of think of it basically, don't you? You think, well, if you want to get married and have 5 kids, then marry someone who wants to be married and have 5 kids. Don't marry someone who doesn't want children. So you think about it simply like that. And I can remember when I first started at Burwood Council, I was a young girl, very talented, about 26, and really, really good. And she came up to me, very shy though, and I'd only been there for about, I don't know, not even a month or so. She comes up to me and one of those people, she wouldn't look me in the face, and she just couldn't eye connect with me. She comes up to the door and she stands in the doorway and she goes, Veronica, would you be my mentor? And I go, oh, okay. How do you want to play this out? And she said, well, I'll go away and write something up. And I said, okay. So she goes away and she writes something up, and she says, basically her goal was, she'd worked at Burwood Council for a long time, and she wanted to work in policy in the New South Wales government. And I'm thinking, well, I've got this girl, and she can't even look me in the eyes. So how is she ever going to go at a job interview when you've got to connect with 3 people across the table? And, and I thought about it, and we worked solidly for 2 years on her interpersonal skills, on her confidence, on her ability to sell herself, and on her self-esteem. And there were many issues why she didn't have the self-esteem that I thought she should have, because she was intelligent and articulate and kind, and all the things you would want in a person. And so we worked on it and worked on it. And I was so proud to say that as I was going through my own recruitment process to get the job at Mosman Council, she was going through a similar process, and on the week that I was finishing up at Burwood Council, she came into me and she said, Veronica, she said, I've got a job as a policy officer in the Office of Cricket, Gaming and Racing. And it was a massive promotion for her. It meant also too that she didn't have to work 2 jobs to pay her mortgage. But what she did was, and the point I suppose of that part of my story is, she realised that she realised she needed something to take her where she wanted to go. And so she surrounded herself with the right person. And in that instance, I happened to be the right person. And so, but she stuck with it and she put herself out there and asked someone who she barely knew, but can you help me? And of course, most people do want to help other people. And she's gone on, funnily enough, if you can believe it, to work in that policy area that's dealing with the problem of the century, which is all about, the lockout hours and all of that stuff in King's Cross. And, I can't think of a better person to be in there trying to solve some of those problems. So that was one of the things about, surround yourself with the right people. The next point that Gail made in her talk was about to thrive on change and to deal with it. That old story that they say the 3 most stressful things you can do in your life is have a relationship, break up, move house and change jobs, and don't do all 3 of them at the same time. Yeah, anyway, I found myself in 2001 in a position where I was doing all those 3 things at exactly the same time. So, I had a relationship break up, and then of course I had to move house, and then I also I didn't change completely my job, but I renegotiated my work conditions to deal with changing circumstances. And and I look back at that time and geez, it was tough. And of course it is, it's tough to do any of those things at any point in time. But then I also look back now and think, well, every one of those changes have yielded a positive benefit later on in my life. I would not be standing here today if all those 3 things actually hadn't happened for many reasons. One, in my relationship, I hadn't surrounded myself with the right person. So, that was good. But you don't know it at the time. And I suppose when you deal with change and then you realise you cope through it, you're not quite so afraid of it. And sometimes too, you think you've hit, all the levels of change that you can cope with. But I found myself in a situation in 2010 where, there were significant changes going on in the state government, and I ended up, leaving the state government, and I was doing some consulting work. And you know what? I really didn't like it. I love government. I love working for government. I thought, well, how do I get back into what I really want to do? Where there wasn't a really positive, recruitment environment going around, there weren't good jobs there, and it was all changing, and the election was coming on, and the Labor government had a lot of problems, and blah, blah, blah. And I saw this job advertised in the paper for Burwood Council, and I thought, local government, interesting. Because we in state government, when you've grown up there, we sort of have a different view of local government. It's not necessarily, something that you, connect with all the time. It can be a little combative. Those that have worked in state government know, and those that have worked in local government know as well. And then I thought, well, it's a big change, but I thought, have a look at it. So I went down and read all the criteria, and one of the criteria said extensive, detailed knowledge of the Local Government Act, and it was like, oh, really? I don't have that. I couldn't demonstrate that. I'm competent with legislation, I've written legislation for the state government, and I've done this. And I thought, in the end, if you really want this, Veronica, then just play it out. And I rang the guy up, the contact officer, and I said, look, I've got this criteria here, I've got all these other skills. I'm really good, I said, but I can't demonstrate that. Am I wasting my time in even applying? Because there's 15 criteria to write. You don't want to spend all weekend doing that if you're just going to throw it in the bin. And so I had a look at it all, and in the end he said, no, that's fine, Veronica, put your application for me. So off I trotted to my interview, and thankfully, I was successful in gaining that position. And then so once again, I look back on that time and think, well, hang on a minute, all those changes meant, once again, that I landed here, which is actually where I wanted to be. And so the idea is not to be afraid of that change and to deal with it and to find ways to cope and to get help. The 4th point in her story was about generosity of spirit. And it's an interesting concept, isn't it? And it probably means many things, different things to different people. So I thought I Googled it last night to say, well, what does it really mean and how can you present that in a story? And they talked about generosity of spirit is about giving your time, your thoughts, your actions and your words. And so really it's about taking time for people. And I remember I was in another job and, and you all think you're good at your jobs and, doing a great one. And I was having a bit of trouble. I was in a small unit, I was managing them. I had a bit of what I thought were performance issues with my staff. And I thought, okay, well, this isn't good. So I thought, well, maybe I should go on a course. And so I went on a course called Managing Poor Performance. So I thought, well, I'm going to learn how to manage all my poor performing staff. And so I go off to this course, and of course I was frightfully busy at the time. I was very self-important, and I was doing lots of things, and I was the most important person in the world. I was travelling a lot for work. I was doing national security. I was on a plane half the time, and so I nearly pulled out of going on the course. And my executive assistant said at the time, "No way, you go to that course," and she forced me to go. Thank God. Anyway, so we go to the course, and the first part of the course talks about what are your problems in your workplace, what are your staff doing, bothering you and everything. And so, of course, I pipe up with all my stories because I'm in the right, I tell them. Anyway, at morning tea time, the lady running the course, she pulls me aside. She says, "Veronica, I think we need to have a talk." And I go, "Oh, okay, talk, here we go." And I said, "Right," she said, "What is it?" She said, "Well," she said, "the problem in your workplace," she said, "is not your staff." She said, "It's you." And I went, "Oh." Oh, okay, so here I am, going off to a course to learn how to run my staff event. And I said, exactly what am I doing wrong? And she said, "Well, it's quite clear to me," she said, "Veronica, you're setting incredibly high standards," and I do set high standards, ask some of my staff with here today. I set incredibly high standards, but I hadn't given them the tools to be able to meet them. So what it is they needed from me was they needed my time, they needed my thoughts, they needed my actions, and they needed my words. And I wasn't giving it to them. And so I thought, oh, heavens. And I can remember my partner, he rang me on the way home or something from the course, and he actually said to me, he goes, "I said, how did the course go?" I said, "Oh, no, it was really good." And he goes, "Right, apparently I'm a really bad manager." He got laughing, he thought it was funny. But I did take on board, and I suppose that's one of the things about being generosity of spirit too. It's about taking on board what people say, and I thought, wow, big lesson learned. So anyway, so I go back to the workplace, I think it was about August I did the course, and I tried to put into place all of the skills and all of the things that they taught me in that course. And I'm fair to say, by the end of, middle of December, I was going on holidays for a couple of weeks, and so I wasn't going to be there around Christmas time. And before I left, the staff came up to me and gave me a little present and a card saying how wonderful the last 5 months had been. So, I suppose the issue there is that it's about giving, it's not just about the outcome all the time. And I think as head of an organisation or a manager, your organisation is as happy as the people that are working for you. And they are people first always and workers second. And we always need to remember that. And I think, though, one of the things around generosity of spirit too is about in this very busy, manic world we live in now, whether you're a professional or a mother or balancing both or doing whatever, is we don't give time to ourselves. And I think that's about the generosity of spirit too. Turn it back onto yourself, because if you're happier in the place that you're in, you'll get more positive results from the people around you as well. And I know, like I was thinking the other day, I have a busy job, it's demanding, and I think at the beginning of January when I came back from leave, I thought, well, I'm going to start having a massage again. I'm going to have a massage at least once a fortnight. That'll be really good, it'll be relaxing and everything. So anyway, I think the week beginning the 13th of January, I did have one massage. Have I had another one? No. So, it's those types of things. So it's about, and if you make arrangements, you think, how many times have you gone out and had a great night with friends or arranged to organise to do something? And you think, this is great, we should all do it every month. Do you do it every month? No. But we should make that effort. So it's about giving that time to yourself. The last part of her 5-point plan was about resilience. And I know that's a very bandied about term these days, and it means many, many different things to many people. But basically to me, resilience means if you get knocked down, get back up again, keep trying. And I noticed in my bio that there was a gap in my successes for my Australian Surf Lifesaving titles. So I won in 91 and didn't do anything in 92. And then there was 93, 94, 95 and 96. Great record, would have loved that 92. And my 1992 athletic season was an interesting one. So I actually had a lot of change in my life that year. I went to Sydney, I had a job, I changed coaches and did all those sorts of things. And I had a great season. I decided to do athletics and beach bringing at the same time. It was an Olympic year. The 4x100 metre women's Olympic relay team qualified. They were going to take a team. They said they'd take the top 6 100 metre sprinters in Australia. So I was really focused on the athletics, and we went to Adelaide for the Olympic trials, ran the best race of my life. We ran 11:74. I came 5th in the final. I then we had my New South Wales relay team ran an Australian record at 44 seconds flat, which still stands today for a state team. Melinda Gainsborough-Taylor was in that team. She's a lovely girl too, and she runs very fast. So that was great. And so all things good, I was going, this is great, I'm going to go to the Olympic Games. The first year that I've tried, it's all going to be fantastic. And so of course what happens is they announce the Olympic team. Did they choose me? No, of course they didn't. Because I was new, I was a bit of a new kid on the block, there were people with injuries, so they picked sort of more experienced people, fair enough. So I thought to myself, this is all okay. I've got the Australian Surf Lifesaver titles coming up at Polaroid in a couple of weeks' time. You know, I'm the reigning Australian champion. It was also a World Championship year for the Australian Surf Lifesaving titles. I thought I've got a chance of making the Australian team, so I headed myself off to the Narrabeen or whatever it was. I don't really like that beach very much. I think it was Polaroid. They moved it a bit further down because it was a bit, you know, something was going on with the waves. I don't know what competitors. And anyway, so there I was, and I'm about to do the thing, and I'm in the final. And all fantastic. Anyway, I'm running down the thing and I'm leading, and of course what happens? I fall over 5 minutes before the finish line. And I go, oh, that's not good. So that was really quite embarrassing. And I thought, oh damn. So you think about it, like the years going, you know, I didn't make the Olympic team, falling over in front of a whole lot of people, it's embarrassing, you know, favourite to win, thinking, well, I'm not going to make the Australian team for the, you know, the World Championships, and I was getting a little devastated by about that point. Anyway, but suffice to say, all is well in the world, and the Australian Surf Lifesaving, you know, establishment, obviously for the same reason that the athletics establishment picked more experienced girls in the other relay thing, they picked me for the Australian Surf Lifesaving team. So I mean, you know, it swings and roundabouts, isn't it? So you can have things go wrong, but others can, you know, pick you up and help you move along. And so that's what happened. And so in the end, I went to Japan, and you know, and the rest is, I suppose they say, is history. And I mean, I won the World Championship, a couple of them, and it was all good. And I suppose the point of that story about resilience is to actually just keep picking yourself up, because something good will happen in the end. And at any point in that story, I could have down to it, couldn't I? Could have said, oh, I wanted to make the Olympics, I don't care about that thing, I'm not going to go. After I fell over, I could have like crawled into a hole. You know, I felt like that. I still went out there and had a good time that night. That's what you do in surf life. So it all worked out. But I think though, when you look at those 5 points, so if we revisit those 5 points, and it talks about vision, and it talks about the right people, and it talks about driving on change, and it talks about, you know, I don't know what the fourth one was, I've forgotten now, but anyway, and resilience. I said what it means though, at any point in time, you can reassess those things. You know, so if you get to a point where you've had a major change in your life, so you get to point 3 and you've got a major change, maybe go back and have a relook at your goal. Change your goal a little bit, and think about what it is that you want to do. And I think if you have all those things in play, you know, if you're struggling in an area and it's not working, find a better person to work with. You know, surround yourself with good people. And I think a lot of the times too, when I know as an athlete, we're incredibly selfish. Athletes are incredibly selfish. We're awful people, really. Beach sprinters in particular, absolute hypochondriacs about everything. And everything is about your next training session and how your leg feels and all the rest of it. And as a professional athlete, or you know, a semi-professional athlete, I had a masseur, a physio, a coach, a lovely 17-year-old training partner a week, because the top girls always trained with a younger guy, beautiful. He went on to win the Storm Gift too, so a great kid. And you know, and then I had, you know, people looking at your diet, and then you had the psychologist helping you when you're in a mood. How many people in your day-to-day life do you have all those things around you? You don't even think about it, do you? You get up every day and you just work and you do your job, and you don't have other people around you to help you. The support that you have, and I think that's one area where women excel. Women really excel at that because they support each other and they talk to each other and they provide that support. So never underestimate that. And I think, you know, I sort of thinking about bringing it back to this whole idea about women and equality and things like that. And I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know how I feel about quotas. You know, they talk about, you know, we need to have 50% CEO women or 50% women on boards and things like that. And I was sort of talking, I was chatting with Di this morning, and my thoughts around this kept changing as I was thinking about this morning's speech. And I've come down to the point that for me, equality for women is that women are able to do what they want to do. That's what equality is. If you want to be a mum and stay at home and raise 4 children and not be, you know, a super CEO somewhere at the same time, then that's fine. I think equality we lose if it means that we hit a barrier that we can't do something that we want to do. And I think that is what is important, and that's what, to me, equality is about. And I have a best friend, as most of us do, and her name is Jenny. And she's a great girl, she's very thoughtful, she's actually my physiotherapist, and she's still my friend, can you believe that, after all those years. And she actually, every Christmas, she buys me a Christmas present that some way reflects my year that I've had. So like I get a serious birthday present, but I get a funny Christmas present. And so for Christmas last year, she bought me a calendar, one of those desk calendars, and it was the Keep Calm and Carry On calendar. And she thought that given that I had this, new sort of very high profile and quite demanding job, that there'll be times that I'll need to keep calm and just, and just carry on. And on that calendar, she'll quote every day. And my team, my directors know this. I've got this rule that I'm not allowed to turn the calendar over until the day that it occurs. So I get a surprise every day about what quote is. And I turned over a quote on February the 7th, and it was by an American businesswoman called Kathleen Black. And her quote for the day was, "Excellence is doing the best you can at what you do the best." So it's not about being everything to everyone. It's about picking the thing that you do well and then just do the very best at it that you do. And I think that's one of the things when I look back on my life. I'm not a big motto person, but I think that's one thing that I've always tried to do. I think whatever I choose to do, if I want to be a beach sprinter, I want to be the best one that I can be. And I think to finish with my favourite Kathy Freeman story is in late 1995 it was, I was actually in the best shape of my life in running athletics, and there was a meet down in Canberra, and we'd gone down there, and I was a really good starter over 100 metres. That was my strength. I kind of petered out towards the end even over 100 metres. And the first 60 metres was good. And so I had an event where you could run a 60 metre and a 100 metre. And so I ran the 60 metres and I won that quite clearly, and I thought, personal best time, I thought, this is great, And so then I moved on to the 100 metres and Kathy piped up and I thought, oh, that'll be all right. Anyway, so here she is, and Kathy's right at the beginning of her season, because she'd run internationally all through our winter, and she was pretty much out of shape, and she was only running 100 metres, and and she is a 400 metre specialist, albeit still way better than me at 100 anyway. And anyway, we get onto the start line, beautiful conditions in Canberra, great chance to run a great time, and gun goes off, and I'm feeling fantastic. And I must say, I was in front in that race, I reckon for, 98 metres. and right at the end, lovely Kathy, she's 6'5", right? And I got to the end of that race, and I thought, and anyway, and I ran personal best time that day, and that was my personal best time for the rest of my career. I ran 11:64, Kathy ran 11:58. That last 2 metres she ran really fast. And I thought about that afterwards, and if you come back to my motto, on that day, I did the best that I could do. I ran my personal best time. And I also realised then too that Kathy, she's an out-and-out champion, isn't she? She wasn't going to be beaten by me. I was not in her class. Well, I wasn't, and I admitted that. And that also then brings back to your realistic goals, doesn't it? I was never going to beat Kathy Freeman. Not really. There was a really good chance that day. Only she just started a little slower. But so I suppose that's the thing. But I must say, even in my athletic career, I loved that day. It was a fantastic day. I felt like I was competitive with Kathy for the first time ever. I ran a personal best time, but I didn't win. So we don't always have to win to enjoy ourselves. So anyway, that's my little story for today. I hope you've enjoyed some of my observations about life and about, I suppose, looking at the practicalities of life as well and being realistic about what we can achieve, but also continuing to look and to strive and to make a difference where you can. Thank you.